إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. So tonight on the 27th night of Ramadan in the year 1429 of the Hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ, we're gathering together for a lecture regarding Ahkam al-Eid or Ahkam Eid al-Fitr, the rules and regulations of Eid al-Fitr. And before beginning, let's just make sure the sisters can hear. If the sisters can hear, if they could just knock for us. طيب. Okay, so let's begin. And the first issue that we'll deal with is Mal Eid. What is an Eid? What does that mean, Eid? Yes. Okay, they just knocked. If the sisters can hear, they can knock on the wall. They're not knocking.
I think they voted.
Huh. They're knocked? If the sisters can hear, they could knock on the wall.
It's on mic too.
If the sisters can hear, if they could knock on the wall in a way that we can hear it. I can hear it. They knocked. جيد. خلاص. طيب. So the first issue is Mal Eid. What is an Eid? What does it mean, Eid? Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, Al-Eid is a name for that general gathering that Ya'udu. It returns or comes back in a manner with which people are accustomed. It either returns annually or monthly or weekly or with some other frequency. So the Eid comprises and contains certain matters, among them. Number one, a day that is recurring and returns, like the day of Fitr and the day of Jumu'ah. So every year we have Eid al-Fitr, and every week we have the Eid of al-Jumu'ah. So these are what? Recurring events or recurring days. The second thing, a gathering of some type therein. That every Fitr we get together for what? Salat al-Eid wa khutbat al-Eid. And every Jumu'ah we get together for what? Salat al-Jumu'ah wa khutbat al-Jumu'ah. The third thing, actions specifically related to that day, whether acts of worship or customs and traditions. Yes. Nafis, I don't want you to be walking around. I want you to sit down, and I want to see you at all times. Okay? I don't want to talk to you again, okay? I want you to go back there and sit there. I'm going to focus on you. I'm going to look at you, okay? No, I want you to be on the men's side right there where I can look at you. Go sit down right there. طيب. So we said that an Eid comprises three things. What are the three things? Okay, it has to have a gathering. Okay? A day that recurs, returns, keep coming over and over and over again. Okay, what's the third one? It has specific actions, whether those be acts of worship or what? Habits and customs that people practice on those days. Okay. And the Eid could be specific to a certain place, and it could be general. And all of the above are referred to as an Eid. But, as Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned in some of his other works, and likewise his student Ibn al-Qayyim, that there is a specific condition that has to be fulfilled in addition to what we mentioned previously, in order for the event or the gathering to be called an Eid. And that is what? That the place and or time have to be intended in and of themselves. The place and or time have to be intended in and of themselves. So, which means what? If the Eid is related to a time, it can never be delayed. It can never be delayed or can never be moved forward. Because this particular time is what? Intended in and of itself. It has to be done at this time. And if it's related to a place, it can never be done what? In a separate place or in a different place or an alternate place. It has to be done in this place. Why? Because this place is intended in and of itself. So if one of these two conditions is fulfilled, the place or the time is intended in and of itself, it becomes what? It becomes an Eid. It becomes what? It becomes an Eid. Examples. Christmas. Is Christmas an Eid? Huh? It's not an Eid. Ajib. It's not an Eid? Huh? Okay, what did we just say an Eid was? We said an Eid was a day what? Which recurs. It has a gathering therein. Action specific to it. And what? The place or the time is what? Intended in and of itself. I ask you, on Christmas, doesn't it come every year? Don't the people gather on it? They gather at the church. Families gather together. There has to be some gathering. Are you coming over to grandma's house? Everybody has to be there for Christmas. Right? Alright, another thing. They have action specific to them. Is that true? You have to give gifts and you have to decorate the tree and ilakhiri. Okay, they have action specific to it. And then on top of that, what? The date is intended in and of itself. Can Christmas be on the 24th? Can it be the 20th? Can it be the 29th? It has to be on the 25th. It has to be. That day is intended in and of itself. So Christmas is a what? Is an Eid. Alright, what about Independence Day? Independence Day. Is it an Eid? Is it an Eid? It's an Eid. Comes every year. People gather. Have to gather. Have to barbecue and get together in so-and-so's backyard and have to gather. Also, there's action specifically related to it. Fireworks, barbecues, right? And the date is what? Intended in and of itself. Can't be on the 5th of July. Can't be on the 6th. Can't be on the 1st. Has to be on the 4th. Has to be on the 4th. Alright, New Year's Day. Is it an Eid? New Year's Day, is it an Eid? It's an Eid. Recurs every year. People gather, right? And the action specific to it. And what? The date is specific. Can't be on the 29th of December, the 30th of December, the 31st of December. Can't be on the 2nd of January. Has to be on the 1st of January. So it's clear to us what an Eid is. What about Mawlidun Nabi? Celebrating the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ. Is it an Eid? Is it an Eid? It's an, okay, Christmas is an innovated Eid. All these are innovated Eid. But we're just going by the definition. We want to make sure you understand the definition of an Eid. It's an Eid. It's an Eid. Okay? Why? Because it happens every year. And the date is intended in and of itself. The people gather for it. And so on and so forth. Like we said, all the conditions are fulfilled. Alright, now let me ask you another question. I want to make sure that you understand before we go on. Suppose a family, the Johnsons, every year in the summer, they have a family reunion. Every year in the summer, we have to have a family reunion. Okay? Is it an Eid?
No. It's a date specific.
Is it an Eid? No. MashaAllah, ahsan. Lish. Why not? Sometimes it's in June. Sometimes it's in July. Sometimes it's in August. Sometimes it's September. Depends on what? Depends on everybody's schedule. When everybody, we get the most number of the family together, right? Also, the place isn't intended. Sometimes we do it in St. Louis. Sometimes we do it in Arkansas, right? Sometimes we, right? Jay. All right. So it's not an Eid. Family reunions are not an Eid. Okay? All right. Suppose the Imam of the Masjid, Abu Hafs, he agrees with the brothers to affix a day, Tuesday. And he affixes the place, the Masjid, to teach Islamic jurisprudence, fiqh. Every Tuesday we're going to meet in the Masjid, the brothers are going to meet in the Masjid, and I'm going to teach them fiqh. Is it an Eid? Is it an Eid? Hajib, he says it's an Eid. Zayt. Why is it an Eid?
Because he has a fixed specified time and place.
Jayt. But is the time and place intended in of itself? It can't change?
No, because he said it can't change.
It can change. We agreed on Tuesday. But then we see that the attendance is poor. So we asked the brothers, Ajib, you brothers agreed Tuesday. Yeah, but my work schedule changed and I can't make it. You know, if it was on Wednesday, it'd be better. If it was, okay, khalas. Wednesday. They just what? They changed it to Wednesday. So it's not what? It's not an Eid. And also what's indicative of this is the hadith of Abi Sa'id al-Khudri in Sahih Bukhari, that he said that the women, they came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, غَلَبَنَا عَلَيْكَ الرِّجَالِ. The men are taking all of your time. We don't ever get any of your time. You're always with the men. You're always teaching the men. So what did he do? He promised them a day that he would teach them. Every week, he would teach the women, right? So this shows what? That fixing a day to teach people a certain subject is not what? It's not an Eid, it's not Muharram, okay? طيب. The Eids that people celebrate are two types. The Eids that people celebrate are two types. أعياد غير تعبدية. Eids which do not contain any rites and rituals of worship. They don't contain any rites and rituals, and that's not the intention. That's when we get together, we're not getting together to what? To worship Allah. Okay, or to worship false gods. We're getting together maybe to enjoy ourselves, to have fun together. But our intention, the last thing on our mind is what? Worship. أعياد غير تعبدية. The second type, أعياد تعبدية. Eids, which the fundamental and primary reason for these Eids are what? Some kind of worship, some kind of ibadah. Got it? Two types. Alright. Both these types of a'yad are what? Prohibited in Islam. Both these types. Whether they're غير تعبدية, have nothing to do with worship, or if they're what? تعبدية. They have something to do with worship. Both of them are prohibited except what? Two Eids. The Eid al-Adha and the Eid of al-Fitr. Okay? You want to say Yom al-Jum'ah? طيب خلاص ماشي. And the third one, Yom al-Jum'ah. Okay? The evidence for this, or the evidence that the first type is prohibited, غير تعبدية, the ones that don't have any worship connected to them whatsoever. What's the proof that these are prohibited? The proof is the hadith that was collected by Ahmed and Abu Dawood and al-Nasa'i on the authority of Anas, who said, قدم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المدينة ولهم يومان يلعبون فيهما فقال ما هذان اليومان قالوا كنا نلعب فيهما في الجاهلية فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله قد أبدلكم بهما خيرا منهما يوم الأضحى ويوم الفطر. The Prophet ﷺ, he came to Al-Madinah, and its people had 2 days which they used to celebrate, playing and enjoying themselves therein. So what did they used to do on these 2 days? Play and enjoy themselves. There was no worship whatsoever, just playing and enjoy themselves. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ, he said to them, what are these 2 days? They said, we used to play and enjoy ourselves on these 2 days in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wa sallam, Allah has substituted them with 2 days. Allah has substituted them with 2 days, superior to them. The day of al-Adha and the day of Fitr. So the Prophet ﷺ, he came and he found the people of al-Madinah, al-Ansar. He found that they had 2 days that they used to do what? They used to gather on these days. The days used to reoccur every year, right? They had specific things that they did on these days, which is what? They would play and enjoy themselves. And also, the specific time was what? Intended. So when he saw this, he did what? He said, Ma hadan al-yawman. What are these days? And this is what? Inkar. This is the Prophet ﷺ rebuking them, scolding them, saying, what's up with this? So when they explained, he said, Allah has replaced them. What does that mean if I replace something? What does that mean if I replace something? It means that this thing is thrown out and it's replaced with something else, which means that this thing that was before is what? It's supposed to be gone. It's what? Prohibited. Forbidden. Right? It's forbidden. So this hadith shows us that all Eids other than the 2 Eids of Islam are prohibited. Is that clear? that make sense? That's for the first type. Al-a'yad غير تعبدية. Okay, what about the second type? What if the Eid is an Eid of ta'abbud? It's an Eid where people do acts of worship. Then this one will be prohibited for two reasons. The first reason, it's what? It's an Eid. And we just said that all Eids are prohibited based upon the hadith of Anas. Then on top of it, because it's an act of worship, it will be what? Bid'ah. وَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ وَبِالتَّالِي مُحَرَّمَةٍ. It would be what? An innovation. Because every act of worship not legislated by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and Allah will be what? A bid'ah. And every bid'ah is misguidance and therefore muharram. Okay, so we have two types of Eids. The first type? Huh? غير تعبدية. It doesn't contain any worship. This type is prohibited or legal? Prohibited. What's the proof? The hadith of Anas. Alright. The second type of Eid, it contains worship. It's also prohibited, like the first one, for two reasons. Why? Because it's an innovation, and because what? It's an Eid. It's an Eid. Okay? Perfect. Alright. Now let's talk about ahkam al-Eid. The first matter is that fasting on the day of Eid is prohibited. Fasting on the day of Eid is prohibited. As indicated by the hadith which was collected by al-Bukhari on the authority of Abi Sa'id al-Khudri. قال نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن صيام يومين يوم الفطر ويوم النحر. So Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said in the hadith collected by al-Bukhari, the Prophet prohibited fasting 2 days out of the year. The day of al-Fitr, the day of Eid al-Fitr, and the day of what? Yawm al-Nahr, the day what? Of slaughtering and sacrifice. This is what? Eid al-Adha. Likewise, al-Bukhari collected on authority of Abu Hurairah that the Prophet ﷺ said, that the Prophet naha an siyami yawmaini yawm al-Adha wa yawm al-Fitr. Abu Hurairah also mentioned that the Prophet prohibited fasting 2 days out of the year. The first one being the Eid al-Fitr and the second one Eid al-Adha. So the 2 days of Eid are prohibited. Now we benefit from this hadith or these two hadiths something else. And that is that Eid is what? 1 day. Eid is 1 day. It's not like some people say that Eid al-Fitr is 5 days. Some people say Eid al-Fitr is 3 days. No, Eid al-Fitr is what? 1 day. Because of the hadith. It says that he prohibited the fasting of 2 days. Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Right? So this lets us know also that any concessions that the Muslims have been given. For example, if the Muslims have been allowed to do something on the days of Eid which they're not allowed to do on other days. That concession is only for what? For the day of Eid. It doesn't go beyond the day of Eid. Okay, so for example, women have been allowed, as we'll discuss inshallah ta'ala, women have been allowed to do what? Play with the duf, like a small hand drum that they use. Okay, and they've been allowed to what? Sing and enjoy themselves in this way. And this is specific to what? The day of Eid. 1 day. 1 day. طيب. The next issue, the second issue, حكم صلاة العيد. What is the ruling of Salat al-Eid? Is it obligatory? Is it highly recommended? Is it just permissible? Is it obligatory? Is it highly recommended? Or is it permissible? The first opinion is that Salat al-Eid is obligatory. And this is the opinion of Abu Hanifa. And it is also the opinion of Ahmad in one riwayah. In one version, which is recorded from him, is that he said it was obligatory. And this is based upon the hadith, which was collected by al-Bukhari and Muslim, on the authority of Atiyah, that she said, كنا نؤمر أن نخرج العواتق والحيض وذوات الخدور إلى المصلى يوم العيد يشهدن الخير ودعوة المسلمين ويعتزلن الحيض أو ويعتزلن الحيض المصلى. Atiyah, she said that we were ordered that on the day of Eid we should cause, or we should make all of the women come out, whether they be elderly, whether they be women on their menstrual periods, even the young virgin girls, who were not yet married. They were told to do what? To come out for Salat al-Eid and to enjoy with the Muslims and to celebrate with the Muslims the good, and to listen to the sermon and to celebrate with the Muslims and to enjoy and to join them what? In their celebrations and their happiness for this day of Eid. To the point that one woman, when they were commanded this, she said, O Messenger of Allah, some women do not find a proper outer garment to wear outside. So he said, let that woman who doesn't find an outer garment borrow one from one of the other women who has extra outer garments. Even she should do what? Even if she doesn't find an outer garment, she should borrow an outer garment to come out. So what these ulama say, Abu Hanifa and Ahmed and others, those who agree with him, they said that look, if elderly women and women on their menstrual periods and the young virgin girls who usually just do what? Stay in the house away from people's eyesight. If they have been ordered to come out, then certainly the man is ordered and obligated to come out. That's the first opinion. The second opinion is the opinion of Malik, Al-Imam Malik, and al-Shafi'i, and is the most famous riwayah, the most famous recorded statement of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, that Salat al-Eid is mustahabbah. It is highly recommended and encouraged, and it's not wajib. It's highly recommended and encouraged, and it's not wajib. So what do you think? What do you think? I mean, what do you think? Huh? Obligatory or not obligatory? Obligatory or highly recommended? What do you think?
I think it's obligatory.
Obligatory. Huh? Imam Malik, لا يعجبك. Imam Malik, خلاص, لا يعجبك. You know, that's just, is that not enough? Imam Malik said, خلاص, that should be enough, right? What's that?
The Sahaba look at these matters like this. This is something
Uh-huh.
later. I mean, they just came out, right? Or did they say that?
To be honest, the Salaf, they didn't used to look at matters in terms of istihbab and wujub, and if the Prophet commanded, they just did it. They just did it. This occurred later when people's iman became da'if, and they would ask, do we have to do this? So it became necessary for the scholars to clarify to them what is obligatory, in the sense that if you don't do this, you'll be atham, you'll be sinful. And if you don't, but in terms of the Salaf, and even when they explained to their students, they wouldn't say that this is wajib and this is mustahab. They wouldn't differentiate. They would just, the Prophet said. Okay, but now, like I said, we're living in a time where people need to know, do I have to do this? If I don't do this, am I sinful? And so on and so forth. So now I'm asking you, what do you think? I mean, look at this. You have Malik, Shafi, and Ahmed, the most authentic riwayah from Ahmed. You have 3 against 1. Abu Hanifa and Ahmed fi riwayah. So what do you think? 3 against 1? That is, huh? MashaAllah, ahsan. Say it's obligatory. طيب, I'll tell you what, let's look at alright, wait, لحظة شوي. Alright. Alright, let me give you some statements. And then we'll come back to it. Ibn Qudama, who is the author of Mughni in Hanbali fiqh, and a great scholar who lived in the 6th century. In his book Al-Mughni, he says, وَلَا بَأْسْ بِخُرُوجِ النِّسَاءِ يَوْمَ الْعِيدِ إِلَى الْمُصَلَّى. He says there's no harm if women come out to the Musalla on Yawm al-Eid. And Ibn Hamid, he said, يُسْتَحَبُّ ذَلك. That's something liked and encouraged. Al-Shafi'i, he said, يُسْتَحَبُّ لِلنِّسَاءِ غير ذوات الهيئات حضور الصلاة. He said it's encouraged for those women who are not extremely beautiful to come to the prayer. And Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la, he said ظاهر كلام أحمد أن ذلك جائز غير مستحب. Al-Imam Ahmed, he said that, or Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la, he said about Al-Imam Ahmed, that when you read his statements, what is apparent from his statements is that he considers something permissible for the women to come out, not something mustahab, not something highly encouraged. If they come, it's okay, but it's not highly encouraged. It's Ahmed. Then listen to this. كرهه النخعي. Ibrahim al-Nakhai, min kibar tabi'in, he used to dislike it. He used to dislike it. وكذلك يحيى al-Ansari. Yahya al-Ansari. And the two of them, they said what? They said, لا نعرف خروج المرأة في العيدين عندنا. They said, in our madhab, we don't know anything called women coming out on the day of Eid. This is our madhab. Then, وكرهه سفيان. You guys know Sufyan? Sufyan al-Thawri. Sufyan al-Thawri, he said what? كرهه. I dislike it. Ibn al-Mubarak. You guys know Ibn al-Mubarak? Ibn al-Mubarak what? Dislikes it. Disliked it as well. وأهل الرأي, أهل الرأي, the people, the followers of Abu Hanifa, likewise, they used to what? Consider it okay for the woman if she was kabira, the elderly woman, right? And they didn't like it for what? For the young woman, although they allowed it. Okay? This is for who? This is all what? Talking about the women. Are you with me? Do you guys understand where I'm going with this? All right, let's come back now. Is it obligatory or not obligatory? Huh? Not obligatory. Any takers for not obligatory? No, Musa still says obligatory. You have to do it. Otherwise, we'll just beat you with a stick. If you don't come on. Tayyib, I love this. Khalid says, it's a statement of the Prophet. He commanded. But look at this now. Shuf. Look at all these ulama. Look at all these ulama. None of them said, shuf. None of them said it's obligatory on the woman. Some of them said highly encouraged. Some of them said permissible. Some of them said what? Yukrah. They disliked it. Now this hadith Atiyah, if it tells us that it's wajib, who is it wajib on first and foremost? The women. Because he said, Kunna nu'mar and nukhrij al-awatiq. Wadawat al-khudur wal-huyyad. Talking about what? The women. We were commanded to send out the women. So if anybody is commanded in this hadith, first and foremost is commanded who? The women. And then the men came what? Taba'an. They followed them. So now the Salaf, they didn't understand from this hadith that it's obligatory on the woman. فَإِذًا the hadith doesn't indicate what? Wujub. It indicates what? Istihbab. Now a person will say, okay, we have amr though. Well, amr yaqtadi al-wujub. That when the Prophet commands something, the asl is that it means it's wajib. We say sahih. But sometimes what? You have another evidence that comes, and that evidence explains that the Prophet didn't intend wajib. He intended what? Encouraging you and recommending to you. So now you say, okay, what is that thing? What is that other dalil? Fahm as-salaf. Fahm as-salaf, wallahi ya ikhwani. What we believe, and we're Salafis. We believe what? We follow al-kitab wa sunnah ala fahmi salaf al-ummah. It's not enough for me to have a hadith and say I understand the hadith the way I understand it. I'm going to act on the way I understand it. La. I have to act on it the way what? The way they understand. I have to always go back to their understanding. As Imam Ahmad said, إِيَّاكَ أَن تَتَكَلَّمْ فِي مَسَلَةٍ لَيْسَ لَكَ فِيهَا إِمَامٍ. Woe unto you, I caution you, beware of speaking about anything unless you have what? Someone who said the same thing before you. And shuf, look at Ahlul Bidah. Look at the people of innovations. Wallahi, all of them use the Quran and Sunnah. All of them use the Quran and Sunnah to support their innovations. All of them. So where did they go wrong? Because fahm as-salaf. They didn't follow the Quran and Sunnah according to what? The fahm of the salaf. So the only way we can avoid what? Falling to innovation is to what? Al-kitab wa sunnah ala fahmi salaf al-ummah. So إذن الظاهر الذي يظهر Allahu a'lam, that the correct statement is what? Salat al-Eid is mustahabba wa laysat wajibah. Salat al-Eid is highly encouraged, highly recommended, sunnah muakkadah. You should pray it, but if you didn't pray it, you wouldn't be sinful. You wouldn't be sinful. All right, let's go ahead, Khalid. Go ahead.
The evidence for the Salaf that it's disliked.
What do you mean?
In light of the statement you made, where is it disliked?
Some of them used, as Imam Nawawi, he mentioned al-Majmu', they used the statement of Aisha, that if the Prophet ﷺ saw the women the way they are today, the questioner he asked, he said, what was the proof that the Salaf used to say there was dislike for the women? And Nawawi mentions al-Majmu', that there's an athar on the authority for Aisha, and this is a famous athar, that she said if the Prophet saw the women the way they come out nowadays, he would have prohibited them from coming to the masjid. So some of them use it as a proof to say it's what is disliked. But irregardless of what their proof is, whether we agree with them or we don't agree with them, they all are in agreement that what? It's not wajib. Some of them said yukrah, it's disliked. Some of them said it's allowed. Some of them said it's encouraged. But none of them said what? Wajib. And again, the first and foremost person that it should be wajib on, according to the hadith, is the women. So when it wasn't wajib upon them, we know what? It's not wajib on the men. Okay? Alright. The third issue is waqtu salat al-Eid. What time should salat al-Eid be prayed? Salat al-Eid can be prayed anytime after the rising of the sun until just before the zawal. The sun reaches the meridian. And this is by agreement of the scholars, as has been transmitted by Ibn Rushd wa Ibn al-Qattan. Both of them said that the scholars are agreed that Salat al-Eid can be prayed anytime between the time that the sun rises and until what? Until the sun reaches the meridian. Alright. Now the next question, the fourth mas'ala, the fourth issue, is what? Aina tusalla Salat al-Eid. Where should Salat al-Eid be prayed? Where should Salat al-Eid be prayed? The scholars have two opinions. The first opinion is the opinion of al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. He said that the Salat al-Eid has to be prayed in the masjid, or Salat al-Eid should be prayed in the masjid. The second opinion is that it's the opinion of Abu Hanifa and Malik and Ahmed, that the prayer Salat al-Eid should be prayed fil musallayat. It should be prayed what? The people should leave the inner city. They should go out to an open place and they should pray what? In the open. Okay? They should make it a musalla, an area for them to pray, and they pray in the open. So in our case, we go to the park. Okay? Go to some open area and do what? And pray our prayer what? In the open. Outside of the mosque and outside of the inner city. And this has a lot of benefits. One is that the people see what? See the Muslims. Right? See the Muslims in all their pride and glory, making their prayer and giving their sermon, right? And so this great token of Islam becomes what? Zahira. It becomes, apparent. And it's a kind of da'wah to the non-Muslims. And also it's a show of what? A show of force and strength and so on and so for the Muslims. So what do you think? Shafi or Ahmed, Malik and Abu Hanifa? What do you think? 3 against 1? 3 against 1? What do you think, Salim? لا تدري. جزاك الله خير. جزاك الله خير. Wallahi, the correct thing is the second opinion, the opinion of Malik, Ahmed and Abu Hanifa, that the prayer should be made in the musallayat, should be made outside, right? And this have been authentically narrated on or collected by al-Shaykhain, al-Bukhari wa Muslim, from the hadith of Abi Sa'id al-Khudri. He said, خرج رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في أضحى أو فطر إلى المصلى. That the Prophet, when he went out on Yawm al-Adha or Yawm al-Fitr, he would go out to where? To the musalla. He would go out to the outskirts of the city and he would pray outside in the open. Okay? And this is important, brothers, and also shows us, I've been talking about this to some different people, is that it shows us the importance of, to be quite frank, and no offense to our brothers from the Middle East or from the Third World or from the Indo-Pak subcontinent, but it just shows you the importance of the Westerners. They almost have to have their own thing, because as much as you talk to the brothers in these communities about the importance of, okay, the weather's decent enough now where we can actually observe the sunnah. Of course, in the last few years it was so cold, sometimes there was snow on the ground, we couldn't pray outside. But now, the weather is quite tolerable, and we could do it outside and we could observe the sunnah. And no matter how you start talking to them, you start talking 2 weeks before Ramadan, and all through Ramadan, yeah, inshallah, inshallah, inshallah. At the end, it's in the masjid. It's in the masjid. So I'm saying, this is something that, especially in the coming years, because it's going to be in the summer, and we have to make a lot of effort to do what? To try to observe the sunnah, even if it means what? We have to just gather ourselves up together and go do our thing.
We used to have it there. We used to have it in Bel Island.
Hey.
Long time ago.
Yeah, and we need to do it. We need to do it.
Growing up as kids, we used to have it in Bel Island.
Belle Isle, Hines Park, Warrendale Park. I'm not prejudiced. We need to do it outside. We just need to do it outside. Alright, let's go to number 5, this 5th issue. Which one of the 2 Eids should we hasten to make it early? And which one of the 2 Eids should we delay it and make it late? Ibn Qudama has mentioned al-Mughni that there's no difference of opinion amongst the scholars that Eid al-Fitr should be delayed and that Eid al-Adha should be prayed as early as possible. He said there's no difference of opinion amongst the scholars. And then the scholars, they explain why. Because the best time to pay Sadaqat al-Fitr, the charity of Yawm al-Fitr, is what? Just before the Salat. So if you pray the Salat early, that what? That tightens this time and makes it difficult for people to do what? To follow the Sunnah. But if you delay it, it gives people more time to do what? To pay Sadaqat al-Fitr. So this is why the Eid al-Fitr is what? Delayed. Or supposed to be delayed. Then Eid al-Adha, the people they want to do what? They want to make their dhabiha. They want to make their udhiyah. So the earlier you pray, the more time you give them to do what? To make the dhabiha. Right? So this is the wisdom behind what? Behind delaying Eid al-Fitr or Salat al-Eid, Yawm al-Fitr, and hastening it and hurrying to pray it on the day of what? The day of Nahr, or the day of al-Adha. The sixth issue is al-Ghusl. The sixth issue is al-Ghusl. Al-Ghusl, or taking a bath on the day of Eid, is mustahabun bil-ijma'. The scholars have agreed, as Ibn Abdul Barr transmit the ijma', the scholars are in agreement that the person on the day of Yawm Eid al-Fitr, he should do what? He should take a bath. He should take a complete bath. And this is supported by what was collected by Abdul Razzaq on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar, that he used to take a bath on the day of Eid before he left to the Musalla. And also on the authority of and Sa'id al-Musayyib, on the authority of Sa'id al-Musayyib, he said, Sunnatul Fitri thalath. Sunnatul Fitri thalath. Al-Mashi ila al-Musalla. Wal-Aklu qabl al-Khuruj wal-Iqtisal. Sa'id al-Musayyib, he said that the recommended acts for the day of Fitr are three. The first one, walking to the place of prayer. Secondly, eating before you leave. And thirdly, what? Thirdly, what? Taking a bath. Taking a bath, right? And this hadith, or this athar, was mentioned by Shaykh al-Allama Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani fi Irwa al-Ghalil, and he said, bisanadin sahih. Bisanadin sahih. Alright, the seventh issue is what? At-tanadduf wa-tatayyub wa-tajammul yawm al-Eid. That one should groom himself, he should put on perfume, and he should beautify himself and wear the best clothing he has on the day of Eid. So a person should groom himself, he should wear perfume or cologne, and he should wear his best clothing on the day of Eid. Grooming, for example, trimming his mustache and, shaving under his underarms and so on and so forth, clipping his fingernails. That's what? Grooming. At-tatayyub, wearing cologne, this is obvious. And then at-tajammul, wearing the best clothes possible on the day of Eid. And what supports this is the hadith which is collected by al-Bukhari and Muslim, on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar, who said, أخذ عمر جبة من استبرق تباع في السوق فأخذها فأتى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال يا رسول الله ابتع هذه تجمل بها للعيد والوفود فقال له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما هذه لباس من لا خلق له. In the hadith which is collected by al-Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar, he said that Umar al-Khattab went to the marketplace and he saw a cloak which was made of silk, pure silk. So he bought it and he brought it to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, O Messenger of Allah, take this cloak and wear it on the day of Eid. Okay? Beautifying yourself on the day of Eid, and also if you receive a delegation. So the Prophet ﷺ said, this outfit is the outfit or the clothing of those people who have no share in the hereafter. Now, Al-Imam Bukhari, when he mentioned this athar, he mentioned it under a chapter. He said, Babun fil Eidaini wa tajammul fihima. the chapter of beautifying yourself on the day of Eid, okay? Or the chapter on the day of Eid and beautifying yourself for it or for them. So now the question is, how does this hadith show us that beautifying yourself on Eid is what? Encouraged or recommended. How does it show that? Because he brought the cloak and the Prophet said this is the clothing of people who have no hope in the hereafter, no share in the hereafter. Hey, so how does it show that? Go ahead.
Prophet didn't rebuke them, bring them a cloak for Eid.
Jay.
He rebuked them because of the material.
Ahsant. That the Prophet ﷺ, we know the sunnah is what? His statements, his actions, and what? His approvals. So when Umar brought the cloak and said, you should beautify yourself on Eid, he didn't say, no, there's no need to beautify yourself on Eid. You should be a zahid, you should be an ascetic, and you should wear, torn clothes and ripped clothes and holy clothes on the day of Eid. No, he agreed with him. He approved of this. But he didn't approve of what? He didn't approve of the silk. He didn't approve of the silk. So this shows, as Ibn Hajar he mentions in Fathul Bari, this shows that beautifying yourself on the day of Eid is highly recommended. Also, it has been authentically narrated or recorded in the Sunan of al-Bayhaqi on the authority of Ibn Umar that he used to wear his best clothing on the day of Eid. And this is also the well-known opinion of the four schools of thought, schools of al-Hanifiyya, wal-Hanabila, wal-Shafi'iyya, wal-Malikiyya. The eighth issue is at-takbir laylat al-Eid. At-takbir laylat al-Eid. When do we start with the takbir? So for example, we get the news that the moon has been sighted. So now it's the first night of Shawwal, right? And tomorrow will be Eid. When do we start the takbir? Do we immediately start the takbir from that night at Maghrib and we continue making takbir until the next day? Or do we make takbir when we leave our houses going to Salat al-Eid on the day of Eid? Two opinions. The first opinion is the opinion of a Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala. He said that the person should make takbir the night of Eid. He should begin making takbir the night of Eid. So when he first gets the news from Maghrib, he's making what? Takbir, takbir, takbir until what? Until he goes out to the Salat al-Eid and he continues until what? Till he sees the Imam. Okay? And the proof for this is what? The statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. That when Allah mentioned the ayat of Siyam, He said that when the iddah expires, right, or the reason why I have legislated fasting for you is so that you complete the iddah, and then when the iddah is completed, what? That you do what? You make takbir. You make takbir when the iddah expires. This is Surah Al-Baqarah, the 185th ayah. Barakallahu feek. Now, the Jumhur, Abu Hanifa, Malik and Ahmed, they said that he doesn't make takbir at night. He doesn't make takbir at night. He doesn't start making the takbir till he leaves his house the morning of Eid. And he continues the takbir until what? Till he sees the Imam. And then he ceases making the takbir. This is the opinion of Abu Hanifa, Malik and Ahmed. Okay? What do you think? Second opinion. MashaAllah. Why? Why Abdul Salam? Huh? I just told you what Shafi'i said, ayah. And then you have 3 against 1. You get 3 against 1. 3 against 1. Go with the majority. Go with the majority. Huh? Yes. Ahsant. Okay, so what Abdul Salam said is correct, and Khalid just gave us the deal. Basically, that Abdullah ibn Umar, he used to leave his house making what? A takbir. And he would continue making takbir once he reached the musalla. And then once he reached the musalla, he would continue making takbir until what? Until he saw the Imam. Once he saw the Imam, he would stop making a takbir. Okay? Now, the correct opinion, as Abdul Salam said, is what? The second opinion. Why? Because for 2 reasons. The first reason, MashaAllah. The first reason is that if we say that the meaning of the ayah, is that you're supposed to make takbir when the iddah ends. Right? When the iddah ends. Which means what? The first day after Eid. That means you'd have to make takbir when? From the time of Maghrib. All the way until what? Maghrib the next day. Because that's what? That's the first day of what? Eid. That's the first day when the iddah ends. So this would continue all day, and nobody says that. Even the people who say that you make the takbir, they say you should stop when? When the imam comes out. So they don't say this. The second thing is what? Fahm as-salaf. Abdullah ibn Umar, he doesn't know this ayah. He doesn't know this ayah. وَلِتُكَبِّرُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. He doesn't know this ayah. He knows this ayah. But he didn't understand from the ayah that you start what? At night. He understood that you start when? When you go out of your house and you continue to what? Till the imam comes out. And we said what? That we follow the Quran and Sunnah ala fahmi salaf al-ummah. And following them, following their understanding is always better than what? Our ijtihad. Our analogical deduction. Our reasoning. When I look at this ayah, this is what comes to mind. No. It's always better to do what? To follow them. Why? Because Allah is pleased with their understanding of the Quran and their interpretation of the Quran, their practice. So since we have Abdullah ibn Umar and this is how we understood it, we do what? We follow his interpretation. Alright, the ninth issue. The ninth issue. What do you want? Do you want to come up here? Hamza. Alright, the ninth issue. Sifat al-takbir. How do we make the takbir? So now we know when to make the takbir. How do we make the takbir? We have a number of ways in which the Sahaba, they made takbir. A number of ways in which the Sahaba made takbir. One of them is authentically recorded in the Musannaf of Abdul Razzaq, as Ibn Hajar said with the authentic chain, on the authority of Salman, that he said, or he used to say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Kabira. This is one sifa. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Kabira. So you say Allahu Akbar 3 times and then what? Kabira. This is authentic, narrated on the authority of Salman. The second one is the famous takbir of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, which is also authentic, in which he used to say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, walillah alhamd. So basically these are the two most authentic takbirat. Okay? So this is how a person should make takbir on the day of Eid. And it's good if he what? He uses both of them. So it doesn't become just a ritual where he's not even thinking about what he's saying. That's one thing. The second thing is we shouldn't fall into what many people fall into, is that they start doing it in unison. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. They start doing it what? In unison. Right? In one voice. You shouldn't do that. Everyone should make his own takbir. Also, another mistake they make is that they say the takbir in what? With tajweed. They say the takbir with what? Tajweed. A person should say the takbir like he speaks normally. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. And you shouldn't do like these people. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. You shouldn't do that. Okay, we don't apply the rules of tajweed to anything except what? Except the Quran. طيب. The 10th issue is eating before leaving the house on the day of Eid al-Fitr. Eating before leaving the house on the day of Eid al-Fitr. The 4 schools of thought are in agreement that one is encouraged to eat before leaving on the day of Eid al-Fitr. And that is because what has been authentically collected in al-Bukhari on the authority of Anas, who said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يغدو يوم الفطر حتى يأكل تمرات وفي رواية يأكلهن وترا يأكلهن وترا. So Anas, he said in the hadith which is collected by al-Bukhari, he said that the Prophet would not leave in the morning before Eid al-Fitr. Before doing what? Before eating some dates. And in one riwayah he said what? يأكلهن وترا. he would eat them what? An odd number. 3, 5, 7, 9. He would eat what? An odd number of dates. And also it has also been authentically recorded on the authority of Ibn Abbas, who said the same thing. كان لا يغدو يوم الفطر حتى يطعم. That the Prophet would not leave in the morning of Fitr until he would eat something. The 11th issue is that we are highly encouraged to walk to the musalla. Highly encouraged to walk to the musalla. If it's something possible that we can do, we're highly encouraged to do what? To walk to the musalla. As has been authentically reported on the authority of al-Khattab. And Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, when he wrote to his governors, he wrote that this is the sunnah, that people should walk to the musalla. And also at Tirmidhi, he said, "Huwa qawlu akthara ahl al-ilm." It is the statement of the majority of the scholars. And we also mentioned previously the statement of Sa'id ibn Musayyib, who said that there are 3 sunan on the day of Fitr. He said what? Al-mashi al-musalla, and eating before one leaves for the prayer, and taking a bath. So he mentioned that one of the sunan is what? Walking to the prayer. So a person, if he's able to walk to the prayer, he should walk to the prayer. Yeah, that's going to come. The 12th issue is that there is no adhan and no iqamah for Salat al-Eid. There's no adhan and no iqamah for Salat al-Eid. And this is the consensus and agreement of the scholars, as mentioned by Ibn Abdul Barr and Ibn Rajab. They both mentioned that this is the ijma of the scholars, their consensus, and has been authentically collected in Sahih Muslim on the authority of Jabir ibn Samurah, who said, "صليت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم غير مرة ولا مرتين بلا أذان ولا إقامة." He said, Jabir ibn Samurah, he said, I prayed with the Prophet several times, on several occasions, Salat al-Eid, without what? Without the adhan, without iqamah, just salat. The 13th issue is that there is no prayer before Salat al-Eid, and there's no prayer after it. There's no prayer before Salat al-Eid, and there's no prayer after it, because of what has been authentically recorded on the authority of Ibn Abbas, who said, صلى بنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم صلاة العيد ركعتين ولم يصلي قبلهما ولا بعدهما. Ibn Abbas, he said, I prayed Salat al-Eid with the Prophet, and he prayed with us 2 units of prayer, and he didn't pray before them, and he didn't pray after them. The 14th issue is how many units of prayer is Salat al-Eid, and is it correct for an individual to pray Salat al-Eid alone, or does it have to be prayed in jama'ah? First of all, Salat al-Eid is what? 2 units of prayer, and this is bil ijma'. This is by the consensus of the scholars. The scholars are agreed that Salat al-Eid is what? 2 units of prayer, as has been transmitted to us by Ibn Qudamah. And we mentioned previously that Ibn Abbas said what? The Prophet prayed with us what? Rakatain, 2 units. Now the question comes, if a person, for whatever reason, he can't go to the prayer, can he pray Salat al-Eid himself? Can he pray it alone? It is highly encouraged that Salat al-Eid be prayed in jama'ah, as was mentioned by Ibn Qudamah. This is bil ijma'. It's highly encouraged, yustahab. But it's not what? It's not wajib. Which means that a woman, or a person who is ill, or a person who is traveling, or a person who couldn't come to the salat for some other excuse, this person could pray what? Could pray Salat al-Eid alone, by himself. Why? Because there's no dalil, there's no evidence to say that what? Salat al-Eid cannot be prayed infiradan, munfaridan, a person praying alone. And also al-Hasan al-Basri, he mentioned specifically that the musafir is allowed to what? Pray by himself. The one who's traveling is allowed to pray Salat al-Eid. Hasan al-Basri said this. Hasan al-Basri is from a tabi'in. And Imam al-Shafi'i, he said what? The same is true for what? Al-Marid. The same is true for what? Al-Marid. And there's no proof to show that praying it together in jama'ah is what? Wajib. In fact, we have ijma' that was mentioned to us by Ibn Qudamah, transmitted to us by Ibn Qudamah, that it's what? Highly encouraged and not obligatory. So a person could even pray Salat al-Eid alone, if he needed to do so. The next issue, the 15th issue, is when a person prays Salat al-Eid, there are additional takbirat. There are additional takbirat. So how many takbirat should I guess we can leave this one, because I mean at the end of the day we're going to follow the imam. So we'll leave this issue. For the sake of time. Let's go now to the issue of raising your hands. When the imam makes these additional takbirat, should you raise your hand with each takbir? Or do you just keep your hands at your sides? You raise them one time for what we say takbiratul ihram, or you raise it for takbiratul intiqal when you come up from prostration to stand again. You raise it one time and that's it. There are two opinions. The first opinion is the opinion of Abu Hanifa, Ash-Shafi and Ahmed. They said that the hand should be what? Should be raised. That when the imam makes the takbirat, each takbir you what? You raise your hands. The second opinion is that the hand should not be raised, and this is the opinion of Malik. What do you think? 3 against 1? Raise your hands. Now what do you think?
There's no report from the Prophet about raising your hand.
Sahih.
But Abdullah ibn Umar raised his hand.
Ahsant.
So some say if he did that thinking that he followed the Prophet, then you can do it.
Jimmy.
But others say the Asli they don't do it. So I don't
Ooh.
know. Allah.
Jayd. Ahsant. Alright. Wallahi, Allah knows best. The correct opinion is the first opinion, that a person should raise his hands. Okay? Why? Because there's 3 of them and there's only one. No, the correct opinion is the first opinion. Why? Because this has been authentically narrated on the authority of who? Ata. And as Khalid said, Abdullah ibn Umar. And also Ata, who's from the Tabi'een, and al-Uza'i. So again, Fahm al-Salaf. And that we have the Salaf, they understood this and they practiced this. Okay? And if we don't have a hadith, the next best thing is what? Athar al-Sahaba and Athar al-Tabi'een. Because the Prophet said what? خير الناس قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم. And always their understanding and their actions are always better than what? Our ijtihad. So if I have a choice between, when I look at this hadith, this is what I understand. And I have a choice between that and what? A narration and a practice authentic from one of the companions or one of the tabi'een, I always take what? I take athar as-salaf. Because if I come to Allah with a hujjah. If Allah asks me, why did you do this? I say, because I was following a salaf as-salih. Right? As opposed to what? Why did you do this? I thought, I felt, it made sense to me. Wallahi, if you met Allah, which would you rather be able to say? I was following the salaf. Or I thought, I felt, wallahi, this is better. طيب, the next issue. Al-julus al-khutbah. Is it obligatory? Or is it mustahab? So once I finish praying and the imam gets up on the minbar and he starts to give the khutbah, do I have to sit? Or can I leave? MashaAllah. Khalid says you can leave. Hey, gotta sit. Obligatory. Hey. Obligatory. What do you think, Abdul Salam? You're permitted to leave. Ahsan. They all agree that it's highly encouraged and recommended that the person who comes for Salat al-Eid is recommended to do 2 things. To pray the prayer and to sit and listen to the khutbah. Both these are highly recommended. But he's not obligated to sit. And the proof for this is the hadith was collected by Abu Dawood and Nasa'i and Ibn Majah on the authority of Abdullah ibn Sa'ib. He said, شهدت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم العيد فلما قضى الصلاة قال إن نخطب فمن أحب أن يجلس للخطبة فليجلس ومن أحب أن يذهب فليذهب. So the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, and al-Albani authenticates it, he said that we're going to give the khutbah. So whoever wants to sit for the khutbah, then let him sit. But don't feel obligated. If you need to go someplace, you have something to do, feel free to go. So the Prophet gave them permission to do what? To leave and not to sit for the khutbah. Another thing that supports this is the famous hadith in Sahih Muslim, where one of the governors, Marwan, he wanted to give, or he was going to lead Salat al-Eid, but he wanted to give the khutbah before Salat al-Eid. So he went to climb up on the minbar, and one of the people in the audience, he grabbed a hold of him, and he said, al-khutbah qabla as-salat? Al-khutbah qabla as-salat. You're going to make the khutbah before the prayer. And he said, that which you know has passed away, has come to an end. Right? In one of the riwayat of this qissa, he said to him, he said, look, if we pray and then we give the khutbah, the people will not sit for the khutbah. So we have to give the khutbah. We have to give the khutbah first. Why? Because we're holding with what? Waiting for the salat. What does this tell you? That they understood that it was what? It was okay if people got up and left. That they didn't consider it something obligatory for people to stay. So he wanted to make them stay by what? By making the khutbah first and then following with what? With the prayer. Alright, the next issue, and we're almost done. Just 2 more issues. The next issue, tahiyyat. No, hold on a second, I missed one. That's Abdul Salam's issue. The next issue, mukhalafat al-tariq. When I go to Salat al-Eid, I go in a certain way. When I come back, I should go in a way which is different from that way. And this has been authentic narrated on the authority of Jabir that he said, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا كان يوم عيد خالف الطريق. That the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, on the authority of Jabir, that on the day of Eid, if he went one way, if he traveled to Salat al-Eid by one path, when he came back, he took an alternate route. The next issue, tahiyyat al-Eid. How does a Muslim greet his brother Muslim or give him congratulations on the day of Eid? It is highly recommended and encouraged for the Muslim, if he meets his brother Muslim on the day of Eid, to congratulate him and to greet him and to say, تقبل الله منا ومنكم. تقبل الله منا ومنكم. May Allah accept from us and from you. And al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, he said that this has been authentically narrated on the authority of Ashab Rasulullah sallallahu. And likewise, Imam Ahmad has recorded it authentically in his Musnad, that they used to say what? تقبل الله منا ومنكم. The last issue, and we're done, is ضرب الدف. ضرب الدف. Alright? On the authority of Aisha رضي الله عنها, she said, دخل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعندي جاريتان تغنيان بغناء بعث فاضطجع على الفراش وحول وجهه فدخل أبو بكر فانتهرني وقال مزمار الشيطان عند رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فأقبل عليه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال دعهما فلما غفل غمزتهما فخرجتا. وفي رواية قال دعهما يا أبا بكر فإنها أيام عيد. In this hadith, Aisha radiallahu anha, she mentions that on the day of Eid, she had Jazakallah khair. On the day of Eid, she had some girls in her apartment, and they were singing songs. And they were singing songs about 2 tribes who warred with each other, or they were at battle with each other for a long period of time. And in these songs, they were mentioning the feats of bravery that each side performed throughout this long series or long years of battling. So they were singing these songs with these meanings, and the Prophet came in. And he laid down on his bed, and he turned his back to them, okay, and just took a rest. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? That it was permissible, because he approved of it. He didn't say, what are they doing? Okay, so here they are singing and doing what? Beating with the duf, right? So Abu Bakr comes in, and he said, are these the flutes of the devil in the presence of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu? So the Prophet turned, he said, da'huma, leave them alone, ya Abu Bakr. Leave them alone. And in one narration he said what? Leave them alone, because every people have an Eid, and this is our Eid. So this shows you a number of things. One, that the asl, the original fundamental precept of the duf and any other musical instrument is what? It's haram. Why? Because Abu Bakr called it a mizmar min mazamir al-shaitan. He called it what? A flute from the flutes of the devil. And the Prophet didn't Tell him. It's not a flute. It's not a flute from the flutes of the devil. He approved of what he said. You're right, Abu Bakr. It is a flute from the flutes of the devil. And Ahlul Usul, the people of Usul Fiqh, they tell us that what? Whenever something is attributed to the devil, that automatically tells us what? It's haram. Whenever something is attributed to the devil, it automatically tells us what? Haram. And the Prophet approved of what he said. But at the same time, he told Abu Bakr what? Leave them alone because it's Eid. It's Eid. So this tells us that the duf is permissible on the day of Eid for women. And just what? Just the duf. Only the duf and not any other musical instrument. So they can't. I remember I went 1 year. Stop. 1 year I went to Ann Arbor. And after the Salat al-Eid, they were like, yeah, the men are going to go to this hall or whatever, and the women are going to go some other place. So we go to the hall, and these guys had, they had those drums, they were like, it was like Jackson 5 or something. I mean, it was like, yeah. So it's important for us to send one, that all of the musical instruments beside the duf are what? Impermissible. And even the duf is only permissible for who? For the women. And even the duf, which is permissible for women, is only permissible on the day of Eid, which is only one day. And with this, we conclude our discussion of Ahkam al-Eidain. And then we have some questions here. Hey. Yeah, just shut off. Okay, the first question says, is it permissible to take money from my husband's family, his mother and father, even if they are not Muslim, and this money is for clothing, or this money or clothes is sometimes a gift or as a help, because they know we want to get it, but we do not ask for it. Jazakallahu khairan. Wallahi, there's as far as I know, there's no proof, especially considering that these are your relatives ultimately, and there should be mutual what? Giving and taking of gifts between giving and receiving gifts between relatives, even whether Muslim or non-Muslim, and especially with grandparents and parents. If you don't take it, it's more of an insult than taking it. It's better for you to take it humbly than to say no, we don't want to take it. Especially if you didn't take it with the intention that we're non-Muslims. So then they're going to ask ultimately, why you won't take? We give you things and you won't take it. And if they corner you and you ultimately say, well, you're non-Muslims, this is going to close the door to da'wah. This is going to make a rift. And we've been taught throughout the Quran to respect our parents and to put them in high esteem, to treat them in the best way possible, to concern ourselves with their feelings and so on and so forth. To the point, even the non-Muslim parents, Allah says, وَإِن جَاهَدَكَ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبَهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. That if your parents, they try to what? They try to compel you to associate partners with me which you have no knowledge of, then don't obey them. But at the same time, treat them kindly. Treat them in a way which is known and acceptable to mankind. So the sister should take the gifts, and she should be extremely thankful, show a great deal of gratitude, and also when they're able to, they should give gifts. They should give gifts to the parents, to her husband's family, and so on and so forth, realizing that silat al-rahim, keeping the ties of kinship, this is applicable even for the non-Muslim relatives, and also that mothers and fathers and grandfathers and grandparents in particular, they have a really high status in Islam, to the point that Allah, the only right that He gave or He put over their right is His own right. Look at the ayah. Allah says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ وَبِالْوَالِدِينِ إِحْسَانًا. And your Lord has decreed that you worship none other than Him, and that you are kind to your parents. That you are kind to your parents. Shuf, when Allah in this ayah He mentions a number of different rights, and the first right He mentions His right. The next right, immediately after, His right. The right of the parents. This shows you that the only right greater than the right of the parents is the right of Allah. So we have to be very, very highly respectful and courteous and very mindful of how our deeds will affect our parents. And I'm 100% certain if she doesn't accept, they'll be upset. And if it's going to upset them, she has to avoid upsetting them by what? By accepting. Uh-huh.
Forgive me for not knowing more about the hadith, but is there not a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ and come back from expedition? I'm not sure if it was on the day of the Eid or not.
Hey.
They come back and a slave girl was playing the duck,
Uh-huh.
and he came in, she was still playing the duck, and then Umar ibn Khattab came in, and she put the duck under herself.
Uh-huh.
And then the Prophet ﷺ made a statement to, I'm not a general statement, I'm paraphrasing, that even the devil was afraid of Umar.
MashaAllah. Hey.
Was this on the day of the Eid, or was it surrounding the Eid, or was it outside of it? And if so, how does this reflect on what you said?
Wallahi, I'm not sure about this particular hadith. But there is a hadith that, there's some hadith that when the Prophet first came to Al-Madinah, that certain women from the Ansar and certain young girls, they came out and they played the duf to receive him. So some ulama, they say that also, if a person of high status and position, if he came to the community, that the women will be allowed to do this or to celebrate in this way or this fashion and so on and so forth. So that's a totally different discussion. And I think perhaps that this hadith that you're referring to, or this story, might have something to do with that. But again, the asl is a tahrim. And the proof for it is the fact that he called it Abu Bakr. He called it a flute from the flutes, or instrument from the instruments of the devil. And the people of Usul, they say what? That anytime something is attributed to the devil, it means what? At-tahrim. And when he made this attribution, the Prophet didn't scold him. He said, yes, it is, but it's Eid. So what? That shows it's acceptable only on Eid. Okay? Mm-hmm.
Towards extreme matters about after the Eid, after the Salah,
Mm-hmm.
with the extent of celebrating it.
Mm-hmm.
Day of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure it should be done in moderation, but a lot of Muslims, I mean, they, let's go to Cedar Point. And,
Mm-hmm.
These kind of things. I mean, where should the line be drawn on
Hey.
how far to take it? Because I've heard certain brothers, it's like pressure almost.
Uh-huh.
My wife wants to take the Cedar Point.
Hey.
The kids to Cedar Point and
Hey.
go here, and they want to go to a hotel. I mean, where should the line be drawn as a specific end? Sometimes it's like almost a competition. Who can do it? If I may use the term, who can do it bigger?
Hey.
Who can spend the most money on it?
Subhanallah.
So sometimes it's pressure.
I mean,
on certain families, and
Hey.
you might have another brother that's calling, hey, what are you guys doing? We got this plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're going out here.
Subhan.
And then you're like, well, no, this is going to just take them out, cool.
Hey.
I just want to know exactly,
Hey.
what's the limit exactly?
I mean, first of all, we have certain principles that whenever we've been told or encouraged to do something, and it hasn't been specified to us exactly how that order is to be carried out, then the asl is that goes back to urf, goes back to custom. So, for example, look at the hadith that says, "Man yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir, falyukrim dayfah." The one who believes in Allah on the last day, then let him honor his guest. Notice that the Prophet orders to honor a guest, but he didn't specify how do you honor your guest. And this differs from culture to culture. For example, in Arab culture, one of the best ways to honor your guest is that if he comes, you take the dhabiha, you take the sheep, and as he's coming in, you slaughter the sheep right in front of him. You show him that this sheep, I'm slaughtering it for you. This is not something I went and bought, a shank or something like that. No, I'm slaughtering this sheep for you. This is how far I'm going to honor you and to show you how happy I am that you came as my guest and so on and so forth. Whereas, if someone came to my house and I saw the sheep, the person would think I'm crazy. This person's a madman. That's just not how we honor the guest here in our culture. So again, the original case is that when we've been commanded to do something, and it hasn't been specified to us in the Sharia, that it goes back to what? Al-Urf. It goes back to the customs of the people. So the way we celebrate Eid might be slightly different from the way they celebrate it in Saudi Arabia and other countries. But obviously we've been given general parameters that we have to remain in. Among them what? That we can't what? We can't be extravagant. And we can't spend money like it's water. because we've been prohibited from this in the Quran and in the Sunnah. What we call tabdir, wasting and extravagance. So no Muslim should spend, money hand over fist to celebrate the Eid and think he's justified in doing so. Yes. Okay, but they okay. Jazakallah khair. If the sisters have any questions, they can feel free to write those down and send those over. We have a couple here. Okay, so that's the first thing. Extravagance is a no-no. The second thing is there are certain things which are muharram. There are certain things which are what? Prohibited. And then there are certain things which lead to muharramat. They lead to something haram. So the thing which itself, in of itself is haram, the Muslims have to avoid it. And the thing which could lead to something haram, the Muslims have to do what? Avoid it. As we have in the hadith of An-Nu'man ibn Bashir. He said, إن الحلال بين والحرام بين وبينهما أمور مشتبهات فمن اتقى الشبهات استبرأ لإرضه ودينه ومن وقع في الشبهات وقع في الحرام. An-Nu'man ibn Bashir, he mentions on the authority of, he mentions that the Prophet ﷺ said that what is haram is clear and what is halal is clear, and between them are matters which are what? Ambiguous, not clear. So whoever avoids these ambiguous matters, he has protected and safeguarded his religion and his honor. And whoever fell into these matters, he said, well, it's not haram. It's not haram. And that's what a lot of people do. They say, is it haram? He said, wallahi, I can't say it's haram, but I just have, it just seems, well, it's not haram. And they just do it. The one who does this, waqa fil haram. He falls into what? The haram. Which tells us what? Two things. One is that whatever leads to haram is haram. Two, if a person is not sure, he does what? He gives precedence to what? Al-hurma. To protect his religion and safeguard his deen. So now when a person talks about going to Cedar Point, think about all of the things that you're going to see there, and you're going to hear there, and you're going to experience there, which go against Islam. Okay? Alright? So when a person looks at that, he sees that, this is, if it's not haram in of itself, it's something which can lead to haram. So he should do what? He should avoid, to protect his honor, to protect his deen. So again, like I said, I advise families to try to be creative, because this is your children and your land of disbelievers, and they should really enjoy their Eid. They should feel like Eid is something special. But again, be creative within the parameters and the boundaries of al-Islam.
I think I saw an email recently that what they're having, one of the communities out in New Jersey.
Hey.
I guess they've been scheduling it, planning it for a year or more.
Subhanallah.
That I think it's either Cedar Point or one of the
amusement parks. They rented it out.
So it's going to be like all Muslims.
MashaAllah.
And supposedly no
or
minimal non-Muslims there altogether.
See, this is good for the Muslims to do something like this. Because there won't be any music, there won't be any naked women.
It's not like just going on your own. It's like shut it down.
Exactly. So this, like I said, for the Muslims to be creative like this and to make effort like this is good. Because again, as I said, we don't want our children to get a feeling of being deprived. You know what I'm saying? And that Eid is just going to the mosque, eating hummus, and then sitting at home with nothing to do. No, we want our children to feel like Eid is something special. You know what I mean? So like I said, I advise families to be creative, just like these people in New Jersey, who rent a whole amusement park, or a water park, or whatever they do, according to the season and the ability of the people and their monetary abilities, capabilities. That they try to be creative and make it a festive occasion for all. طيب. Says, Assalamu alaikum, we want to gather to pray Taraweeh in a sister's house. Is this permissible? And how many raka'ah? Wassalamu alaikum. طيب. And Taraweeh, the asl in Taraweeh should be prayed in the masjid. And they shouldn't gather in a sister's house to pray Taraweeh. They shouldn't intentionally gather in a sister's house to pray Taraweeh. And if they intentionally gather in a sister's house to pray Taraweeh, It's feared that they fall into what? Al-bid'ah. That they fall into innovation. Why? Because if you want your act to be according to the sunnah, it has to agree with the sunnah in 6 matters. One of them is what? The place, the makan. That if the Prophet did this act of worship in a specific place, you have to do it in the same place. So when the Prophet made Taraweeh, when he made Taraweeh with his companions on those 2 nights, where did he make it? In the masjid. He made it where? In the masjid. Does it mean that, let's say that some people are visiting me from out of town, 4 or 5 brothers. I get up in the middle of the night, I start praying. They hear me praying, they get up and join me in prayer. Did this happen intentionally? No, it just happened. This is okay. And the proof for this is that Ibn Abbas, he spent the night in the Prophet's house, and the Prophet woke up to pray, and he prayed with him. This wasn't intentional. They didn't plan this. It just happened like that. But I'm saying if a person intentionally plans to pray Salat al-Tarawih outside the masjid, then what? They fall into what? Al-bid'ah. Because they've gone against the sunnah of the Prophet in terms of the makan, the specific place where this ibadah is supposed to be prayed. So the sisters shouldn't do this. They shouldn't do this. Huh?
What about the statement about praying the
I mean, tahajjud with the family. I mean, you get up and you lead your wife in prayer. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think maybe people could be.
But and again, it's a Taraweeh. What is Taraweeh? Taraweeh is tahajjud in Ramadan. Tahajjud in Ramadan, which is done collectively. The Muslims do it together. It's a special tahajjud which is done together as in a group in the masjid. So it's not something like Taraweeh is one thing and tahajjud is something else. No, Taraweeh and tahajjud are the same thing. But Taraweeh is tahajjud in the masjid in Ramadan. Got it? So during the year, if I get up and I wake my family up and I lead her in prayer, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Taraweeh, no, in the masjid. Alright, then we have this question in Arabic. Says, عندي سؤال دائما يحيرني. إنما أفتتح الصلاة أحيانا أقول هذا الدعاء. إن صلاتي ونسوكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. عندما أصلي وأنا أول مسلمين، إنما أصل إلى وأنا أول المسلمين أقول أنا لست أول مسلمين، فسمعنا أن من أحسن القول وأنا من المسلمين، لأن آية في القرآن تقول من أحسن منا ومن أحسن من عمل صالحا وقال إني من المسلمون والله أعلم. Well, I really don't understand the first question. It says that when I open the prayer, I say إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين ذلك لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. It says that when I begin the prayer, I say, indeed my prayer and my sacrifice and my living and my dying is for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. There's no partner with, no associates with Him. And this I have been commanded, and I am the first of the Muslims. Then it says, when I get to Ana awwal Muslimin, I say, I'm not the first of the Muslims. فسمعنا أن من أحسن قول أو من أحسن قول وأنا من المسلمين. That the best thing to say is that I am from the Muslims. لأن آية في القرآن تقول, because there's a verse in the Quran that says من أحسن من عمل صالحا وقال إن من المسلمين. And who is better than the one who does good deeds and says I'm one of the Muslims. Wallahu a'lam. First of all, I'm not sure if there's a dua istiftah like this that the Prophet made. Does anybody know that the Prophet made this as dua istiftah?
I've heard it, but I'm not sure.
As istiftah? You know what I mean? Dua istiftah. Istiftah means when you first make the takbir, there's certain dua that you make before you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
I'm not sure.
Hey. So the first thing is that if this dua for istiftah is not confirmed upon the Prophet, she should leave it. That's the first thing. The second thing is when Allah says وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, it doesn't mean that I'm the first Muslim, that there was no Muslim before me who ever lived. No, it means what? I'm hastening to accept Islam. I'm hastening to the to the sense I'm hastening so much, it's as if I'm the first one to get there. I'm the first one to achieve al-Islam. That's what it means. So there's nothing wrong We're saying وَأَنَا مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. But to say this dua in this particular, this your question? This your question? So to say this dua at this particular point, perhaps the sister should leave it unless she has an authentic proof that the Prophet said this as dua istiftah. Second question says, أخت عندها مبلغ من المال في بلدها الأم وليس لها وسيلة لزكاة عنده منه أي المال نفسه فهل لها أن تتزكاه عنه ها هنا من مال آخر. شكرا وجزاكم الله خير. Okay, so the sister, she says that she has money in her mother country and she doesn't have any means to pay the zakat on that money, that same money in her country. So can she pay the zakat from money that she has here? Wallahi, I think the answer is yes. Because at the end of the day, it's her money. Okay, and she knows, as long as she knows the amount, she can pay the zakat from some other money. She can pay the zakat. Just like a person who has gold and silver, okay, he can pay the zakat in either one of them. He can pay the zakat in either one of them. He's not obligated to pay it in gold. He can pay the zakat from either one of them, from either one of the two types of money, gold or silver. So likewise, she should be able to pay her zakat from from the money in another country, from the money she has here, as long as it's her money. Yes. What? Do you want this? No, you can't hold it. Just drink it. Just drink. Look at you. Stop. Allah. طيب. All right, let's see what else we have here. It says, okay, I have this now. I already understand. That's it. Okay, let's see what. 1 second, Musa. Let me see this. She says, you explained the question about Taraweeh quite well. Thank you very much. So what if it's Qiyam al-Layl? Is it the same? As we said, yes, what do you want? As we said that, are you okay? As we said, if they're gathering together with the intention of praying Qiyam al-Layl in the sister's house, they shouldn't do this. They shouldn't do this with this intention. If it happened unintentionally, that they were there spending the night, although they probably shouldn't be doing that either. If that happened and one of them got up to pray and the others joined her in prayer, there's no problem with this. But to get together with that intention, they shouldn't do this. And if they do this, they're under the threat of falling into what? Al-bid'ah, innovations.
What if they're spending in the night?
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the fact of whether or not they should do it or not.
Okay.
But if they're spending the night, and then one sister just happens to, get up, and then the other sisters,
join her. Yeah, they can do that. Yeah, they can do that because they didn't do it intentionally. They didn't do it intentionally. طيب, that's it for the questions. Unless you have something, Musa. Zakatul Deen. If you owe money, you have one or two choices. Either you pay the deen, you pay the debt, or you pay the zakat. You pay the debt, and if there's anything left, you pay what remains of the zakat. Or you pay the zakat. You can't say, well, I have a deen, so I don't have to pay the zakat. No, if your money reaches the nisab, then you have to do one or two things. Pay the debt. You can't say, for example, my money reaches the nisab, but I have a debt. Okay, pay the debt. No, I'm not going to pay the debt. But use the debt as an excuse not to pay. No. If you have a debt and you have the nisab, you have to do one or two things. You have to pay the debt or pay the zakat. If you pay the debt and money still remains from the nisab, you pay what's left. Do you understand what I mean? Or do I need to give an example? Give me an example. Let's say that the nisab is $1,500, and you have $2,000 that you've had for a whole year. So now this $2,000 needs to be what? You need to pay zakat on it. Okay, now you owe someone $500. So they say to you, okay, pay zakat. You should have a debt. So pay your debt. So you pay the debt, and what remains? $1,500. So now you pay what? You pay zakat on the $1,500, not on the $2,000. You got it? Because we said 1,500 is what is the nisab. You've reached a level where you have to pay zakat. You had 2,000. You had a debt of 500. You paid the 500. Now go down to what? 1,500. Okay, now at this point, what do? Now you pay the zakat, 2.5% of 1,500. Got it? That's if you have a debt. You owe someone money. Suppose someone owes you money. That money's not what? Not in your hand. You have to pay zakat on it. Do you understand? However, if you want to pay zakat as a precautionary measure, and then when the money comes to you, then you've already paid the zakat on it. You can do that. But if the money's not in your hand, it's not in your possession, then you don't have to pay zakat on it. As long as somebody owes you that money and they haven't returned it back to you. Got it? طيب. All right, shall we stop? وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.
Ali, please send Fareed to the brother side. Send Fareed ibn Ali to the brother side.